November 1943, the total number of German divisions in the field was higher than it ever had been, but all were committed. Of the 302 divisions outside the Reich, the Red Army was engaging 206, 24 were in the Balkans, 22 in Italy, 50 in France and the Low Countries. There was no strategic reserve. Colonel General Alfred Jodl, Chief of Operations Staff Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, was aware of the basic problem which might face the Wehrmacht in the West were the Allies to invade. He said in November 1943, along a front of 2,600 kilometers, it is impossible to reinforce the coast with a system of fortifications at all points. At the Führer's headquarters, the truth about Allied intentions and strength was obscured by two factors. The Allies themselves had engaged in an elaborate deception plan which reinforced the already strongly held German belief that the landings would be east of the Seine. Furthermore, the conflict between Himmler's security service and the Wehrmacht's intelligence service, the Abwehr, led to a staggering and, to the OKW, fatal overestimate of the Allied strength. The Abwehr had invented 30 fictitious Allied divisions in order to stimulate action by Hitler on the Western Front. Since it proved impossible to remove these divisions once they'd been invented, Hitler remained obsessed by the possibility of a second landing for months after D-Day. To Field Marshal von Rundstedt fell the task of organizing the German defenses against a possible Allied invasion. He believed that to prevent invasion was impossible, but that a strong armored counterattack force might drive the invaders back once they'd landed. In January 1944, he had only 50 weakened divisions with which to achieve his task. Of these, 26 were committed by the Führer to the manning of the Atlantic Wall. Rundstedt's incessant demands for more armor led Hitler to appoint Field Marshal Erwin Rommel as Commander-in-Chief West, and thus effectively commander of the defenses from Holland to the Loire. Rommel's philosophy was the opposite of Rundstedt's, and so the beach defenses were greatly strengthened. The Allied landings were to take place in early June in Normandy. The strategy involved the establishment of a firm lodgement area, the initial slugging match on the eastern flank around Caen, followed by the breakout in a wide encircling motion by the American army. From this basic plan, they never deviated, although forced to modify it by weather, the tenacity of the German forces, and the consequent sluggishness of the Allied advance. On the 6th of June 1944, the Allies landed. It is not our task to dwell on the landings or on the days that followed them. As the Allies joined up their beachheads and consolidated their foothold, vital Panzer divisions lay waiting in the vicinity. They were not released in case there was a second landing. Furthermore, the 18 divisions available to Rommel to the east of the Seine could hardly move because every road and rail link with the battlefront had been destroyed by the accurate and devastating Allied air attack. By June the 18th, the Allies had 20 divisions ashore, and for the first time they outnumbered the German forces opposite them. So the Panzer divisions had to be committed to hold the Allies and not counterattack them. The Americans proceeded to cut off and clear the Cherbourg Peninsula, finally capturing Cherbourg on June the 26th. At this point, the American offensive slowed to a standstill in the Bocage country. In the Second Army sector, the attempts of 8 corps to cross the Odon and later the Orne had been repulsed. General Montgomery realized that Caen must be taken and the bridgehead over the Orne enlarged. On the 9th of July, Caen fell, but still the main enemy armor was not committed to the eastern flank of the lodgement area, as it must be if the Americans were to break out. The hard-pressed German troops had been reinforced by a further 2 SS Panzer divisions and were to be further reinforced by 2nd SS Panzer Division and another SS Panzer Division en route from Belgium. By July the 10th, 4 additional German infantry divisions had arrived in Normandy, and although Allied intelligence was hazy on where they were, the overall conclusion was clear. Panzer divisions were being relieved from the line to create an armored reserve. This move must be stopped. The solution seemed to be an attack from the bridgehead east of the Aisne. Incidentally, this was the sector which the Germans had always regarded as the most likely area from which breakout would occur. The plan envisaged a feint in the Odon area on the 15th, 16th of July. Then 8 Corps would attack with its 3 armoured divisions east of the Aisne on the 18th of July in an operation codenamed Goodwood. These 2 attacks would be followed by the American First Army's offensive on the 20th of July, codenamed Operation Cobra. General Dempsey, the commander of the British Second Army, misunderstood the scope of Operation Goodwood. On July the 15th, when General Montgomery saw General Dempsey's instruction to General O'Connor, the commander of 8 Corps, which included the order to establish an armoured division in Falaise, he issued a personal memorandum to Dempsey and O'Connor, which made his limited intention clear beyond dispute. The object of this operation is to engage the German armour in battle and write it down to such an extent that it is of no further value to the Germans as a basis of the battle. To gain a good bridgehead over the Aisne through Caen, and thus to improve our positions on the eastern flank. Generally, to destroy German equipment and personnel. Major-General Roberts was the commander of 11th Armoured Division, the division which was to lead the 8 Corps attack. He had commanded the 3rd Royal Tank Regiment in the 8th Army in the desert, and later had commanded 22nd Armoured Brigade at Alamein, and later still 26th Armoured Brigade. At the time of Operation Goodwood, he was 37 years old.
Of course, at this time, I had no knowledge of the memorandum which was sent by General Montgomery to General Dempsey and then passed on to General O'Connor. But I was quite clear that our first objective was to establish ourselves on the high ground south and southeast of Caen. After that, when that had been firmly established, then we might be able to exploit further to the south.